Welcome back to the Mission43 podcast. We have an amazing guest today. Her name is Jenn Skeesick. She is a doctor of physical therapy. She's a Mission43 Leaders Fellow. She is a mother and military spouse, and she just happens to be the director of CAF-Idaho, or Challenge Athletes Foundation Idaho.
So hit subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what you think, and let's get started.
Join us in learning about the stories and the people who inspire us. This is the Mission43 podcast. I'm Dan Nelson.
And I'm Brian Madden. Idaho is our home. The military is what we did.
Well, welcome, Jenn Skeesick. You're the busiest woman in Idaho. You're the director of the Challenge Athletes Foundation Idaho. Should we start talking about your time being a physical therapist, working with guys like Michael Jordan, or talk about your career dressage and riding career, or your niece that's going to Tokyo for the Olympics here?
Wow, that lineup, that feels pretty good. Let's talk professional first.
Okay, cool.
Let's start there. So, I was a Division I athlete at Auburn University.
I'm sorry?
Yep. Thank you.
What'd you play?
I was on the equestrian team. So I rode jumpers.
So you played equestrian?
I played equestrian. It's a little
What
awkward.
is the correct term for that?
I
rode?
rode in college, yeah, which
Cool.
that always gets interesting comments too.
So did I.
Is Auburn a good equestrian school?
Yes. Yeah. 7 national championships now. So yeah, we were just kind of on the ground roots of that. But following Auburn, I went to Duke for a doctorate in physical therapy. That's a 3-year program.
No big deal?
No big deal. Pretty tough. Pretty rigorous.
Why'd you want to do that?
You know, so I studied animal science. I actually graduated with a degree in leading to vet school. Mm-hmm. And very quickly realized that I did not want to do that for the rest of my life. But I had, like many PTs, had to be treated for something along my athletic career and knew that that was always something that I loved.
Yep.
And so I decided to pursue it. But I didn't know what I wanted to do within it. Like I thought maybe pediatrics, maybe sports medicine, maybe something totally different. And so through a course of just initial jobs, kind of got going in the sports medicine realm and became board certified in that. And that's when I got to hang out with a bunch of really cool athletes on a professional level, doing different things, playing golf.
You worked in the NHL, right?
Yeah. I worked with the Hurricanes. We were doing a bunch of injury prevention with them. This really breakthrough video analysis of movement and all of these different things. And then that kind of trickled over to golf, which got pretty interesting. And then I moved out west because I met my husband, and he was Air Force, and that brought us to Mountain Home, and so following all of that, I was board certified in sports. I was looking for a job and contracted with the Air Force down in Mountain Home as one of their travelers, and very quickly realized that because I was getting to have these dinner time conversations with my husband about different things that were going on with flyers, and we realized that there was some new equipment that being introduced to the jet. And I started talking to a flight doc, and I was like, I have this huge backstory in injury prevention and movement, and we have an issue. And so we actually started surveying the flyers, just very small groups of people, but better understanding the spine injuries actually that were occurring.
Did the military actually invest in injury prevention for their pilots?
It's very funny because a year ago they did.
What was the issue?
It came to fruition. Not to get too far into the weeds, but they added the JHMICs to especially the front seaters' helmets.
Gesundheit. What is that?
JHMICs is an imaging system.
I see.
I don't know exactly how much
That's all right.
needs
Probably
to
not
be
supposed to say
secure and
anyway.
which ones don't. But
So basically on the flight helmet, a bigger piece.
on the helmet, but it has a
chunk.
giant moment arm, so it's a huge weight. It's about 5 pounds, and it's away from their face, so it can come over their visor, so it's way out there. So you can imagine.
So just the counterweights didn't work on that. The 5 pounds of counterweight.
that are right up against their
Exactly.
head.
Yep.
So you have whenever you add a moment arm, this is really getting into the dorky science of it, but when you add a moment arm, the weight and when you start pulling G's or when you put forces on it, it just becomes this something you can't overcome,
right.
especially with the tiny muscles in your neck. And so we were just talking through how truly what do you do with this? information. And yeah, I saw not a year ago that there's actually a formal program that they're doing, and they're also trying to shorten that moment arm on the hammocks.
That's unique because,
cool.
Usually as a whole, the military, all military members are just tools, right? Like,
yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, like they use a tool until it's broken or until the tool is no longer useful. So it's really cool to hear that you and people like you are actually putting in the effort to at least make the tool longer lasting.
Well, that's what I kept saying was we're putting millions of dollars into this tool, and then we're herniating a disc in the spine, and tool no longer can do that.
Right.
It is just not safe anymore, and that's a problem. And they were just seeing these really weird versions of it, so you knew something had to change.
So were guys getting pulled off of flight status because of it?
Absolutely.
It's that serious?
They're being deniffed like right and left because of they weren't reporting pain, and then they were having an issue.
And it was too extreme to keep a flight physical.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So, yeah, it's good to see that something actually came from it, because I hadn't followed it out. Like, once I started having kids and whatnot, I stepped out of that role pretty quickly and didn't know where it went. But
so you went from D1 athlete to working with the Hurricanes and all these other famous professional athlete personalities. Coming here to Idaho, you became a military spouse.
Yeah.
And then you guys started your family and your wonderful kids.
Yes.
And what was the next step for you after Mountain Home?
Oh, I went into just more traditional clinical care with St. Luke's and the practices here in the Valley. And then I took a leadership role doing just administrative for the rehab department for outpatient. So got to travel the state quite a lot and get to meet lots of really neat people. And I guess I should say concurrently through all of those moves, and right after I got certified in boards in sports medicine, my niece was diagnosed with bone cancer. And through all of that, ended up an amputee, walked through that whole oncology journey, which is anyone who's done the cancer walk is a warrior, especially our kids. And so moving across the country away from my family unit and all that was going on, that was pretty challenging.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. That was becoming a military spouse and realizing just what that means when there's crisis in your family it's a pretty heavy lift just to kind of be dropped into that. But yeah, so it was just, there were lots of pieces going on. But I think an important piece of that story was kind of what was going on in my personal life too, in addition to, getting married to Anthony and doing the military thing.
I just enjoy that we've been referring to your husband as a military tool. But we'll tell him that later.
Yeah, we will. I'll hear about it.
So all this is happening, both personal and professional. And then at what point did you become aware of the Challenge Athletes Foundation, the international organization, Challenge Athletes Foundation, or CAF?
Yeah, I learned about Challenge Athletes Foundation first with my niece.
Yeah.
Honestly. I'd had a couple of patients that were adaptive athletes. They just happened to be, right? And they were working through CAF for grants and that sort of thing. But I had never really collided with it personally. So yeah, with Bailey, we learned a lot about it. We realized that was something that she could learn a lot of new sports, and that was really awesome. It wasn't until I was here and CAF was talking with the Albertson Family Foundation about trying to establish something in Idaho. And the only reason I really felt like I had anything to contribute to that was because at the time I was in that administrative role with all of the PTs for St. Luke's in Idaho looking to me for what's the next strategic thing. And so when the question arose, how do we get to all the PTs? I'm like, well, that one's pretty easy. We can have those conversations quickly. And that was really where that relationship started. And it was Virginia Tinley, our executive director at CAF, that was like, have you ever thought about just doing this work? And I thought, how terrifying is that? Why would I leave the safety of everything that I know and have been trained to do in a clinical model and step into a nonprofit world where who knows what's going to happen in the next year, and lose my safety net and try something completely new and different. My husband had just done it.
Yep.
When he left active duty.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the one who was like, no, yeah, go do that. That is the crescendo of all the things that you love between sports med and what we learned in adaptive sports and just being with people and building relationship.
So was it an easy decision then at the end of the day?
No, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for a week, we sat there and poked holes in it thinking, why will this fail? Because, again, I had a pretty good deal going.
Yeah.
And it was the thing that many clinical folks strive to get to.
Yeah.
Right. So why would I just? I mean, that seems silly. Why would I just walk away from that?
You oversaw all the outpatient clinics in Idaho. Yeah. So you were.
Yeah, we had 20 clinics. You know, I mean, there was a lot going on, and there were some really neat things that we were working on. So I wasn't in this really uncomfortable spot where I was looking for something new. And I often think that's. I mean, when you're not looking, it's when it kind of smacks you in the face, and so that's.
So you left that to come work with guys like us. Hey!
Horrible to say.
Happily, happily. Brian's actually a very big part of that whole conversation starting, and we
true.
are very thankful as a family that ever happened.
Yeah. So what ultimately made you say yes?
I think it was the potential. Right? It was looking at it, and Anthony said this one night. We were talking just about what are measures of success, right? Like, if you're going to make a big change, you better have something objectively that you can look at. And he said, success to me would be when our kids are in middle school, high school, whatever, and they go up to Bogus, and their friends that they choose to ski with are in sit skis rather than something else. And
I didn't know Anthony was
I know,
that
he's
smart.
pretty
That's
profound.
pretty dang good for him.
Yeah. The tool can come up with some good stuff
Yeah.
every
Every once in a while.
And I stopped and I was like, it's beyond my career at that point.
Yeah.
It's even beyond just helping other people. It's how do we make our kids better citizens? Like, how do we make them more whole? And I thought, man, if my job can do that, then even better. Right. So, I mean, that was a factor in it, but it was one of those stop moments, and we've already seen it happen. That's the really neat part, is that we know that there's a huge impact from all of this, but selfishly, our kids are different because of the work.
Yeah.
And that's pretty special.
That's the truth. You know, my kids get to be around it just like yours and yours, Dan. And it's funny how you said it in high school, but like, it's within a year, it's just a normal sight, and our kids are totally comfortable being around adaptive athletes and just doing these events right alongside them. It's pretty, selfishly, it's incredible to see, and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah. No, and we pinch ourselves because we're like, well, really, it's not about us or our kids, right? And it's not. I think that's the byproduct that really can stop you in the moment. And wow, you know.
Yeah. Quick anecdotal story. We had a Mission43 event in eastern Idaho, and my daughter was there, and there was a little girl, I think she was less than 2 probably, and she had a deformed hand. And my daughter comes up to me and she's like, hey, that little girl has a messed up hand. And she's like, I just told her mom all about Challenge Athletes Foundation and gave the whole spiel. And I was like, that is so cool. So then it opened up the door. I got to talk to her mom and connect her with you right away. And she didn't even know about, just being in eastern Idaho. There's some, sometimes you don't always see the opportunities. And it was like, it just opened up her world, and like there's a little bit of hope for her daughter.
Yeah. And I think, it's kind of jumping ahead, but with CAF, a lot of it's not necessarily what I get done or what Wilson gets done. It's equipping people with a vocabulary to confidently go have that conversation and say these things are available to you, and I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
Right? That changes things versus I feel so bad for you. That must be hard. Right? So it's giving people words and just an avenue to try to create relationship.
Can you explain what you do here and what CAF-Idaho is specifically doing?
Yeah, so Challenge Athletes Foundation, it's kind of two-pronged, really. We have a grants program that is athlete-specific. It is for equipment, coaching, competition expenses, so that people with physical limitations can go out and do their sport and do it really well and not have finances get as in the way.
Yeah.
The other piece are our camps and clinics, which is really kind of a way to introduce people to new sports and see if they even like it, because the last thing you want to do is get the $10,000 piece of equipment and discover that you actually don't really love it. And then we also bring elite coaching. So for our athletes that are progressing in the sport, they are obviously moving up in tiers there too. So what we did, and in no other state does this exist, so we really are writing the blueprint for how this could look in wherever else that CAF has the opportunity to start a chapter. We took it and said, okay, how do we apply that model to a state, and how do we get our hands around as many people as possible in a way that is genuine and is sustainable, right? And knowing that this had not been really achieved. The other part of it that we discovered as we went along was really there's a lot of organizations that are doing really great work, and we needed to somehow amplify that and pull it together to where more people knew about it.
Yeah.
It's not okay when a really great camp happens and the entity that's putting it on says we can't even find enough people.
Right.
And the people I'm talking about saying, when is there the next thing? Right? We have to connect those dots. And it seems very simple, but it's not, right? People have lives and they have other stressors and they have different things going on. And they have a physical disability. So there is stuff. And so we've really tried to kind of fill that gap too and increase communication so that people know what's going on, whether it's to an athlete or a volunteer. Like really trying to build the community. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what we're doing, right? We're just saying there's a lot out there that you can do. How do we get you there? How do we get you excited? And then keep it going, because it's not helpful when someone gets really jazzed and then a year later they're not doing anything anymore. That's also not success.
It's interesting you mentioned the volunteer opportunities and like bringing that community together, because I get CAF-Idaho emails every single week telling me what's upcoming and staying connected. And not only that, but a lot of the CAF athletes throughout the state of Idaho are my personal friends, or at least I consider them personal friends. Maybe I'm just an annoyance to them, but probably a little bit of both. And that's solely because of what you and your team, Wilson and Willie and all the guys in your family have put together, really. It's interesting that Mission43 and CAF-Idaho, like, we're funded by the same family foundation, who is the reason why both of us exist as this Idaho State Initiatives. But we're mutually beneficial, at least in my mind. And I don't know if you could take people through a little bit, like, what has the experience been like of having Mission43 volunteers comprise, a meaningful portion of CAF-Idaho's membership?
I'll take it back to the very first clinic. So we had launched in May, and everyone said, get excited, the X Games are coming in June, and you're going to have a clinic, and it's going to be at the skate park. And I think to myself, you got to be kidding me, right? I mean, this is fast. And it was by sheer fear and need for survival that because I was like, okay, we're going to put a bunch of kids, especially kids, in wheelchairs that are very, very capable of doing cool things on a skate park, and telling them to go have a good time. And I quickly realized I need really strong, fast people who don't get tired and who are willing to lay out on pavement. Davin Strang, right? Yeah. I mean, I still remember that conversation, and he said it perfectly. Like, I looked at him and said, this little girl cannot hit the pavement. Yes, ma'am. On my way. Little did I know he was fully equipped for that job, right? Like, that was perfect. But yeah, I needed really, really athletic people to run alongside these chairs and make sure that no one got hurt.
Yeah.
So that was, I went to Mission43 for that. Like, I need your help. And it worked. It worked great. And it clicked in my head after hearing everyone's feedback from it. The parents, I didn't even worry about my kids. I could tell that you had a volunteer that was ready for them. And then from the volunteers, like, that was one of the coolest days of my life, and I started thinking to myself, okay, this makes sense. This works. And then as we looked at it more, it was the why. Why does it work? Why is there such strong synergy? And it's the service part, right? I mean, you don't just turn that off. It's just like as a civil servant. right? As a person of the medical profession, like I don't turn off my compassion for someone just because I'm not at work anymore. And that's in my core. And I feel like that's the same for those that have served. And so that part, I think that works. The other interesting part that Willie Stewart has brought to my attention is that so many times when you have a physical limitation, you're on the receiving end constantly. Like you just always are getting, and that's not always where you want to be, right? Like many of our athletes are incredible. And so what we're finding is that there's this mutual beneficial relationship forming where, yes, our service members are giving back, but our athletes are also feeding into.
Yeah.
And I think there's healing in that.
There is. I can
everybody.
tell you my first CAF clinic was the biathlon clinic you guys did in Tamarack. And I met Christy. There's a whole other story behind Christy, but basically she was 6 months away from point of injury essentially. And she was there as an athlete to participate in this biathlon clinic. And you can't help but being humbled by that, because I think of myself and my injury, and I'm like, 6 months. First of all, I wasn't paralyzed, but you'd never get me out to something like that just because of my apparently amazing ability to be a sad sack. You know what I mean? And then she's there, this young college woman that had this, horrific spinal cord injury, and she's not feeling an ounce of sympathy for herself, or at least not showing one, and participating in every way possible she can. And that had an effect on me, had an effect on people around me. And that consistently happens through every single CAF clinic, whether it's, a clinic for CAF or it's a Mission 43 event and there's CAF members that show up anyway, because we do have a lot of crossover.
Yep.
It's got to be totally unique. I don't know where else these type of populations interact with this frequency and tempo.
No, I don't know of a place, and I don't know where it hasn't started to fade. Like, I feel like it's still
amping.
only getting bigger. That's how I feel too, is just that I don't know where the ceiling is on this.
Well, eventually it's going to have a
going.
ceiling. Yeah. There's a ceiling on this place called the Idaho Outdoor Field House. It's going to be built. It's really nice. It's got wood and stuff.
Yeah. No, but honestly, I mean, I think that because that's only going to make it, I assume we'll talk about the field house a good bit, but the field house is really just, it's just building to that. And then then where are we headed? But it is so unique. And I don't know truly of another place that it's as formalized informally as it is here.
Well, there's two great organizations. Just seeing the CAF leadership based out of San Diego and how they operate, and just being able to come here and integrate with Mission 43, that leadership side is incredibly impressive, and that's why it works.
That's fair.
But I remember the first camp too at the skate park, and actually at the San Diego Triathlon Challenge saw a similar thing. But that was when you're kind of sitting back and you see the parents of the children, and for a lot of times it's the first time they're seeing their child basically getting out and getting to be active. And then also you're going hard, like you talked about in the skate park. They're dropping in and little bowls, and it's like, but it's the first time you see the parents see like, holy cow, there's like, my kid can be like everybody else. And it's like, it's pretty moving to watch that in action.
We had a kiddo who's been in a chair. I mean, he has spina bifida, so he's born with a congenital issue. And he rolled up to his mom. I was standing there, and it is forever in my brain, but he rolled up, and he had the biggest grin on his face, and he was like, I am so glad I'm in a wheelchair. And she just fell apart. And she told me, she was like, that's the first time I've felt bad for my 10-year-old since he was born. Yeah. Because I knew what was coming. And that was the first time he's ever said that to me, right? And there were kids, my kids, sitting up there saying, I want to get in a chair.
They do play in the grit chairs quite a bit.
Absolutely, right? And so we're changing that paradigm of, there's still hurt. It doesn't make it go away. And I don't ever want people to think that it's all okay. I mean, there's hard days. But I feel like there's some times where we can look at it and be like, there's some good things happening in the face of not awesome. And it's okay to celebrate that. Like that's actually a shining star.
I think a lot of people probably listening to this or watching this are not familiar with the Idaho Outdoor Field House. And I don't really know how to define it in a concise term that we could fit in this podcast. But basically, it's the headquarters, or will be the headquarters, of both Challenge Athletes Foundation Idaho and Mission43. And that's about like the shortest sentence you can say about it, because it's going to be something remarkable that we feel really confident it's going to change our community and beyond.
Agreed. And I think the field house is just something that, again, that will put Idaho on the map of doing things bold and wise, but really saying we have something we need to do here, and we're going to do something about it. And we have really gritty people who are willing to get sweaty and nasty and do it with us. So that's what I would add, because for so many of our athletes, the feedback we get is, well, I like doing it with you because I know I have somebody right there coaching it along, or it feels safe, or I know I have what I need to be successful, all of those things. And now we have this physical space that's going to be here to do all of those things, right? It's not going to be on the side of the river or
a really remarkable space that actually is by the side of the river, but in a different way.
Yeah, a way better part of the river.
To me, it seems like whether it's a person dealing with a recent injury that now they're becoming an adaptive athlete, that's a transition. Mission43 members, post 9/11 veterans in particular, they're moving from military to civilian life. That's a transition. Families, military spouses like yourself, like it's all transitioning, and there's so much crossover. And like you're a Mission43 Leaders Fellow.
I am.
Yeah, like, and you are, well, a boss in generally everything. You're a doctor, you're a D1 athlete, like pick something. But really the ease in which you bounce back and forth in between the communities of Mission43 and CAF, it's because you belong to both. And I feel the same way. I'm not employed by CAF, but I still feel like I am truly a member. I'm a cycling club member, for a CAF cycling club. And those are conversations and rides that, just more meaningful to me than anything else I've ever done outside of the military. Mm-hmm. So where do you get that? I don't know where else other people can find that, but it's free. You know what I mean? It's an opportunity here that just takes a little bit of time out of your day to do if you so choose.
That's right. Yeah, and to go back to something you said, transition, right? Transition is change. It's just change. Mm-hmm. And do we have...
It's just change.
I mean, some of it feels bigger than others.
Right.
But it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that everybody can boil it down to, I'm really uncomfortable, like in a lot of different ways. And I don't discount that there's major things going on. I'm not trying to make it sound simple, but at its core, it's uncomfortable. And so if we have a space now that embraces that says, bring it all, like, let's just lay it out. There's going to be some really cool things that happen there. And I don't even know if we can predict it. We didn't even know CAF was going to be this successful in 2 years. I'll be perfectly frank. I put the strategic plan out, and it does not look like, we went way faster. So to think about what the field house is going to do.
Yeah. We knew you guys would be that successful. It's because honestly, it takes leadership and you did it. And
wow. Thank you.
It's impressive.
And you continue to grow. And for those that are watching or listening, we'll put the link to the Idaho Field House that's under construction. Not quite yet literally, but coming up soon this fall. It's going to be literally under construction.
Yep.
But it's something big we hope that everyone gets to learn about. Yeah. But, Jen, what would you say, I guess, to adaptive athlete families or actual person fresh off an injury right now that hears this, and whether they're in Idaho or not, like, what message would you want to put out to them?
Yeah, I think, CAF serves everyone, right? Anyone with a physical limitation that's permanent is welcome into the family. And beyond that, we have volunteers. And I talk about the CAF family all the time. It's kind of what you were talking about. If there's members, but it feels like you kind of check in and check out of that. When you're part of the family, you do life together. Yeah. You do cycle together, and you don't worry about your ride. You worry about the conversation or how the person next to you is doing. And so I know that there are people out there, whether it's a sibling or it's a coworker, that does not know that CAF exists. I was in medicine, I was in rehab, and I didn't know it existed until my family was affected, right? So we have a lot of work to do, and we need people's help to just identify and say, hey, I don't even know that I need anything, but I want to be part of this.
Right.
And not just going and getting the newsletters and making sure they're up on what's going on, because we have a lot of folks that are like, no, I've ridden my bike all my life. And I'm like, how about skiing? And they're ready to go, right?
You push still on comfort zones.
I kind of like discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so why don't you try that new thing? So that's what I would say is don't think it's not for you.
Yeah.
It is for you. And it's a welcoming family. And whether you need something or not, you have something to give. And let's get our arms wrapped around everybody. I think that's just the natural progression next.
It is natural for both of our organizations, Mission43 and CAF. We ride together, we climb together, we run together, and we always will. Mm-hmm. And we're just really excited to, one, announce, but also like hype up and get people just as excited as we are about the Idaho Outdoor Field House.
Yes.
Well, thanks for being here, Jen. I know you're the busiest person in Idaho. Get back to your sailing clinic or your climbing clinic, whatever you're planning next, and let us know, because we'll be right there too.
Well, we're so thankful for this relationship. It's the topic that everybody wants to hear more about because it's working so well.
It's the ingredients of the secret sauce.
Really thankful for my Mission43 folks.
Awesome.
It's great.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for the Mission43 podcast. Our purpose is to provide you opportunities to lead, learn, and inspire throughout your Idaho communities.
We want to hear what you thought. Like, subscribe, or leave a comment below.